Welcome to Real Talk, the unedited, scripted, unfiltered show where I sit down with a gaming personality and talk about anything and everything. I'm JP McDaniel, and today on the show we actually have a legend in the world of esports. Now, after this portion of the show is recorded, we will be filming an Afterthoughts episode with all the questions from the community, so make sure to check that out. But for now, let's go ahead and get started. Marcus djWHEAT Graham started back in 1999, as far as I could tell. He might have to correct me with that in a little bit, with esports, and now his peers, including myself, regard him as a legend. If you cut this man, he actually will bleed esports. I'm incredibly excited to introduce on the show Marcus djWHEAT Graham. Marcus, how's it going?
It's going good. It's going good, JP. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm gonna kind of just throw a fuck you out there almost immediately, considering that.
Is it 97?
What? No. Actually, I would say more like 96 is where I really started like getting into it. But anyway, that's for another time. It was for throwing out the word legend because there'll be like 1,000, guys that'll come out on Reddit and be like, bullshit, blah, blah, blah.
Well, fuck those guys, man.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, too.
Yeah, fuck those guys. So, before we really get into your favorite part of the show, the childhood portion, the portion you don't want to talk about, apparently, I want to know...
about my childhood, JP.
I want to know, where did you really get the handle djWHEAT? And has it always been djWHEAT? Was it something else to start off with?
I feel like this question's a bit leading.
But a little bit leading?
It did start off. Actually, I went through an evolution of many names from, online muds to when I was rolling around on BBSs and back in high school, going all the way back, I used to go by Rush, and I'm really like a fan of like uppercase and lowercase, so it was like uppercase R, lowercase U, uppercase SH. This was like the name I gave to all my characters in my video games. It was the name of all my Shadowrun characters or any sort of D&D or anything like that. But anyway, I grew out of that. And then I used styles, and that's when I started playing. And the reason I started using styles was because there was one particular DJ duo who I really liked, and they were producers for Happy Hardcore tracks, and they were called Force and Styles. So for anyone that is a fan of Epileptic Gaming or knows of Force and the legend of Force on Epileptic Gaming, right, he was one of those guys that I first originally started playing with. So we came from Force and Styles. And no, it wasn't from the guy in Teen Wolf, if anyone, that drives the van, they surf on top of it. Anyway. And then I was Styles 519. Like, that was my name when I played Quake. And I still use Styles to this day. You find me on League of Legends under that name, like on Smite under that name, like a lot of MMOs that I might play. Or I like to use that one just because I don't particularly like to use djWHEAT. But anyway, we were practicing for an event, and back then, the only way that you could truly practice, because we really didn't have any ability to boot camp, we would hop onto servers under aliases. So my alias just happened to be Wheat. And it was Wheat because I'm a big fan of wheat beer. Like anyone that knows me, you buy me a wheat beer and I'm a happy man. So I just liked the name Wheat. And it also happened to be the name of this little Pokemon, this little Pikachu that I had, and his name was Wheat. So after that, that's when I was getting heavily into, well, actually I was already into it, but music production and DJing, and that's when I was sort of like, well, I can't be DJ Styles because someone already took that. So right. I'm gonna be djWHEAT. And that's kind of like where it came from. So yes, I was a real DJ of all those fucking guys out there. I own a shitload of vinyl. I don't do any of that bullshit electronically anymore. I don't really focus on it anymore. But that's the long story.
Well, the leading portion of that question was that your name, and I don't know whether I heard this from your mouth. It probably wasn't from your mouth, but everyone used to say that your name was actually djWHEAT. Did you rename it, or has it always been Wheat?
No, there was like, you know how like in the streaming world today,
Yeah.
there are these chat memes. For example, you know, like Rip Day 9, or I don't know, like EMP, like whatever username.
Right, right,
what I'm
right,
talking
right.
about, like you've seen these before. Everyone that's used Twitch has seen it before. Well, back when it was audio only, the big troll on me all the time was basically sitting in IRC and like these were the original stream monsters, son. Like none of these like 09ers, like none of these motherfuckers, they are nothing. These are like the original stream monsters, and so, you know, like back then it was like shitty quality audio. So it'd be like, what's up, guys? This is djWHEAT. And the big troll on me was, what did he say? Huh? Did you say DJ Weed? And so that's where that came from.
All right. All right. Just had to clear that up. So let's go ahead and start the show with what we start every other show with.
It just now started?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
That was the icebreaker question is what that was, sweet. You always have the icebreaker. Now we get to talk about your childhood, man. First off, where were you born? And did you grow up in the same city? If not, where?
So I want everyone to open up Google Maps, maps.google.com.
Are we having a geography lesson?
And, well, I mean, a lot of people don't know this. It is kind of interesting. You will learn something today, people. So look up Boys.
Oh, Jesus.
Town, N-E. Bam. Hit bam on that. And, like, right about that A, actually a little bit over from that A, is where this is actually what is listed on my birth certificate is Boys Town, Nebraska. But if you pull out here, you'll notice that this is actually Omaha, Nebraska. So this little square mile village where they house boys and girls who are delinquent is where I was born. And my parents were family teachers there. So I had a really interesting upbringing because I had my older brother, who is my stepbrother, and then all times I had 8 delinquent brothers, basically of all race, of all age, everywhere from like 10 to 17. And you know, the whole concept of the place is like a live-in family environment where my parents were family teachers, and they basically helped out these kids and put structure into their lives. And it was definitely like a wild upbringing. I did that until I think I was in 8th grade when we moved out of the house. They took different positions. So that was a lot of years. Like basically, I probably over my lifetime have had like 40 brothers,
wow,
if you count all of the boys that were ever in our house.
So did you get into a lot of shit as a child then? I mean, being around that type of community, that culture, you had to at least had some fun times as a child, right?
Well, I will definitely say that there are some good stories. Like I learned a lot of stuff about life that probably, you know, I guess in this day and age, someone opens up the internet and they get the exact same thing. But you can imagine sort of the culture that I was exposed to at all time. So, you know, it was kind of weird, but in, you know, the late 80s, I was that kid that was listening to, you know, Run DMC. And just because that was the kind of music, you know, that would come into the house. And, you know, different things like, a lot of the boys made their money stealing cars and stripping cars, and so you heard a lot of the stories. And I can't say I know how to steal a car, but I mean, it just kind of like puts you into a mindset. So I guess you could say, yes, I was a total shit when I was younger.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny because one of the whole structuring points of Boys Town is this thing called the point card. And it's the most fucked up concept ever. And if your parents ever did this to you, I'm so sorry. But here's how the point card worked. It literally was like a card, like a 3x5 card. And it had all these little columns. And it'd be like, JP, I see here that you emptied the dishwasher. I'm giving you 750 points today. There you go. There you go. And then you'd go to school. And if you came back with a point card for school that was good, JP, look at that. You got all check marks on your card. I'm going to give you 2,000 points. And then it's going to be like, JP, you set the table. JP, we're quiet when this kid erupted and went crazy. JP, you folded your socks. Be like, JP, you got 5,000 points. You have earned your privileges for the day.
Okay.
And that meant you could watch TV. And I mean, it's as messed up as it sounds. So because my parents' job was discipline, we always got put on the point card, dude. When we got in trouble, it wasn't a spanking. It was like, no, Dad, no, don't put me on the point card. But then as we got older, we figured out that we wanted the point card because they would always forget about it. So it's man, the point card.
How many points did you have on your card, Wheat?
You always 5,000 was like the magical, and then it reset every day. But you can imagine if you like talked back to your parents, they'd be like, "Bitch, negative 7,000 points," and then you'd be like, "What can I do to earn some points, Mom and Dad?" It was horseshit, man. Okay. But I've got to say, JP, I walked away from there with a lot of work ethic, with a lot of like solid values, with like a really strong like understanding and appreciation of family, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, man.
In terms of your schooling and things like that, how long were you in this community? Were you there throughout high school, or? Well,
no. Keep in mind that like I was basically, I lived here in the house, but everything else. If you're still looking at Google Maps at Boys Town, going, "Oh my God, this is insane," then right over here is Miller North High School, where I went to high school. And if you go further west, you can actually see Kiewit, which is where I went to middle school. So I mean, like kind of all over there. Yeah. But it was just basically schools. Like it wasn't like there's a fence around the community that maybe. I mean, it was open. It wasn't like a jail or anything.
So
people are like, oh my God, they kept boys prisoner there. No wonder, Wheat. No wonder there's so much wrong with you.
Throughout middle school and throughout high school, did you kind of have a stigma attached to you because people knew that somewhat that you were from that area and that your parents were kind of teachers there, or no, not at all?
No, not at all. It was kind of like if you lived around there, you like knew about it.
Okay.
I had more of a stigma because by that time in middle school, I had already discovered the world of computers, and I was that guy.
So you were the nerd. You were the nerd, huh?
I was definitely that guy.
Did not regret, but are you happy with kind of your high school experience?
Fuck yes. There's like one thing from my high school experience that I actually really, really, really have strong regrets, and even my own father has strong regrets about it. But without going into too much detail, unless we want to.
Please.
All right, so. I came when I was in high school. I was in the world of BBSs, and it's really hard to explain the world of BBSs if you'd never experienced it. But the best way that I could say is like, imagine your favorite website as a community, like community website. Some people might say Reddit. Some people might say like 4chan. Some people might say something awful. Some people might say Team Liquid. But imagine like that was not connected to other sites, and you actually had to use your phone and dial with your computer to reach teamliquid.net. This is the sort of where I came from, is the BBS world. So it was my freshman year in high school when basically this librarian was like, "Yo, man," she didn't say that, but she's like, "Yo, man, let me show you this thing called the internet." And I'm like, "Sweet. Let's check this shit out." And I got my first email address. This was like 1990. I got my first shell access, and I was absolutely just enthralled by what was happening, because I was like limited to these one computer. Like, okay, I'm gonna dial up to sysop BBS today, and then I'm gonna post on messages, and I'll come back tomorrow and see if other people posted. Where it's like suddenly you're diving into this world that is like, oh my fucking God. And that's why I do not take the internet for granted, dude. Like, because I got a chance to like stumble upon communities and see that grow. And it was like an amazing thing. But anyway, not to go too much further in depth with that, is that I started going down a pretty dark path when I got shell access. And I got a lot of access through UNO, which is the University of Nebraska in Omaha. And, you know, one thing led to another, and I really, really got heavy into the hacker culture. And, you know, like a command prompt to me is much better than a graphical interface any day. It's faster. It's more efficient. Even in my previous job, you know, before I started working at Twitch and doing, you know, esports full time, command prompt all day long, just all fucking day long. So anyway, I'll kind of condense the story a little bit. I got in a lot of trouble because I accessed illegally the UNL educational computers and used them for a bunch of things that I shouldn't have done.
Like what?
Well, I mean, God, dude, there's a lot of stories. I mean, you want me to go in or you want me to finish my story?
Finish this. Yeah, finish this.
So let's just, long story short, I got in a lot of trouble, right? I got in a lot of trouble. And because I got in this trouble, you're going to be like, remember the question was, or what I regretted the most about high school? Because I got in trouble, my dad actually didn't let me rejoin the track team. And you're going to be like, how in the fuck did track come into this? And let me tell you, if you've met me, you've noticed that I'm tall and I'm skinny and I was lanky and I have some long ass legs. And I ran hurdles like nobody's fucking business. And still to this day at Millard North, I may still have records in hurdles. I don't know. Kids these days are like superhuman, so they've probably been broken. But like, I was a track champion in hurdles, 65, 110, and did some relays too. And I didn't get to go out because I got in trouble. So that was like the one thing about high school that really fucking sucked.
Now, I got to go back to the hacker thing. A hacker kind of prides himself on things that he's done, things that he's kind of hacked, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
What is the best hack that you have ever pulled?
Well,
that you can talk about, I guess.
You want like the funniest or like the best? So, I mean, we did things. I started off simple. Like, I started off simple with like Crackerjack and getting Unix password files. And before they were shadowed back in the day, basically, it was really interesting, right? Like the quick history lesson is Unix passwords used to be held in the file that was in the same location all the time. And prior to sys administrators actually getting fucking smart, and let me tell you, there was an era where there were guys running computer systems that had no fucking idea what they were doing, right? So like half of these fools didn't even have any sort of shadowing on his password. And, you know, it goes further, even if they do have shadowing, there's ways to remove it. But the way it worked is that the file was structured as such. It was basically like username, their password encrypted, and then like a bunch of other information. And it was plain text. So what you do is you take like an old 486 and you'd set it off to the side, and you'd take this password file and you'd run it through a program, command line program called Crackerjack. And what it would do is it would take a dictionary file and it would basically emulate the same encryption that that particular type of Unix used. So it would take the word apple, and then it would actually encrypt that word, and then it would compare every single word inside of the document to this. And when it found a match, it's like, boom, that password is Apple, right? So the greatest hack, well, this is actually probably the biggest, is that the University of Nebraska at UNL held the entire ESU, Educational Service Unit, like basically server farm under its command. And there were like 59,000 accounts that all had, are you ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
They all had a 4-digit password.
Wow.
So at this point, there were 59,000 accounts, but only like 1,000 of them were actually being used.
What year is this, Sweet? What year is this
like
about?
1993.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense.
So we just had so many accounts, man. Like, we were selling those things. We had throwaway accounts. We would, use specific accounts for like specific activity. We'd run all sorts of programs under one account. So even if it got shut down, they couldn't track it. We all had super user access. It was like amazing. It was our playground, and it allowed me to learn a ton about computers and a ton about, discovery and understanding systems and security. So, I know it sounds really cliche, but absolutely like that. That was a massive learning experience and portion of my life. But some of the probably more devious things that I did, JP, is like one of my absolute favorite things is there was a professor that I really, really, really didn't like, and this was in college where I was in trouble, but I still kind of kept on with my bad ways. But anyway, there was a professor who I really didn't like, and anyone who's used Unix systems will be familiar with like this command called wall, and wall allows you to send text to another user. And there's not really much that they can do about it. So I really, really didn't like this professor. And one thing that was like really easy to get back in the early days, like before the graphical internet, was text files about weird shit. Drugs, cults, like just weird ass shit. You could find it on the internet. So this professor was giving this presentation, and he was using Archie, which was an informational systems, like an old school Unix one. I'm really making myself look so fucking old. But so he was logged in under his account. He was giving this presentation in a giant auditorium, and I walled him this book, or basically this like FAQ about being a necrophile. Basically like the procedures of being a necrophile. And there was nothing he could do, so I sat there and like hit spacebar, letting page after page after page like scroll little bit after time, and there's nothing he could do, and it was Jesus. It was pretty great. It was pretty grand.
Jesus. Well, I guess people know that now. That secret is out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of other stuff, but I know we don't have all the time in the world. But they were good times. I really, I really admire some people because who just have this ability to learn on their own.
Right.
That was kind of that phase that I went through, and so that really taught me, like, if you just sort of take initiative, then you can fucking do something. Like for me back then, it was like, we're gonna hack the shit out of these systems, and it's gonna be awesome. But having that motivation, like, and that drive, something to work towards, it was big. It was so it was a good time in life, even though I did get in trouble.
I gotta ask because I've never. I always feel so weird calling someone a hacker because now it's kind of it's got a lesser term. I don't want to be
called a hacker. I want to be called just a very curious individual who basically learned everything that he knows or eventually would end up knowing about computers for that period. There are guys that know fucking way more than I ever did or will know. But again, it's about that discovery process. It was about it. I happened to do it during a time where it was much easier than it is now. So that's why I prefer to just not be. Okay,
well, as someone who's what you just said, what do you think about the movie Hackers?
I mean, I think it's fucking hilarious. I think it's hilarious. I think, you know what, it's kind of interesting because there's one movie that, like, it's obviously Hollywoodized, but I think it's the best hacker movie, and it's called Sneakers.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Absolutely. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's fucking great, man. Like, there's a real hacker movie. I don't know. I am one of those guys that watches those shows, and they're like, guys, we have some bugs in our DOS software. It's like, oh, fucking, I want to punch you in the face. There's some scuzzy floaters holding up the pipes, but I'm going to hack into the TCP, and I'll change up the IP, and we'll get the DNS botters going, and it'll be all good. I'll route them through the back end of our SSDs, and there we go. Fuck that shit.
All right, well, let's go and move on. You mentioned you went to college. Where did you attend college? What was your degree path when you started off, and did it stay the same?
So I went to college at UNL, and I stayed in the Harper dorm. Harper, 512. I lived in a corner room with 2 of my cats and by myself. Don't ask me how I pulled that off. But it was funny because my RA never found my cats until the last day that I was living there, which was kind of crazy. But anyway, I majored in computer science, which I totally hated. But I did do broadcast work. But mostly, like, college was absolutely kind of like a discovering myself time. I would like to say, JP, that, I mean, this is real talk, right? So
Sure,
I would like
sure.
to say, JP, that my college years were, you know, let's just say I have a PhD in LSD. Like my college years were almost stereotypical, like, just, yeah. I was finding myself, man. I didn't really go to class. I hung out at the arcade and played Tekken 2 all day. And part of the reason I didn't go to class is because I didn't feel challenged. I would still pass my classes, but I was just like, well, I don't want to go to classes. So I basically did what I feel like everyone should not do when you go to college. But again, I don't really regret it. And it's kind of interesting because out of all of that, you know, I basically got hired out of college is what happened because Y2K came around. I was entering my junior year, and you know, basically what was happening is, or it was pre-Y2K, is that all of these companies were hiring just sharp computer guys because fucking systems were going to fail around the world. Well, the joke was on them, but for me, this was like the Golden Gates opening because I was like, I hate school, man. Like, all I do is play video games and sit around. Like, it's boring. I want to go work.
Right.
And so I worked at the local computer shop and blah, blah, blah. Like, it was all good. I sold computers. That was great and everything. But I wanted to go do real work. And so I got hired by a company that did like system management for small community banks. And I got a wicked salary for being, you know, 20 years old, and that was kind of the start of my career. And in the background, I was playing games. I was, you know, being a gamer, but that was what allowed me to basically like really start my life is like working in information technology.
Now, I got to ask, and I got to go back to the LSD experiences of college. Was there... This is kind of hard for me to ask because I don't know how to phrase it, but in all of the experiences, we'll call them, that you had, was there ever one that was just like, that thinking back now, if you can remember back to what those were, that was completely insane, that was whether it was a bad trip, something that was just hilarious that happened while you were on?
Well, you could do a whole real talk about some of these stories, JP.
Give me one. Give me one of the best.
All right. Well, I'm gonna give you one that has a message.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Perfect.
Because there's something interesting that people need to know about any sort of psychedelic, right? Is that you need to be strong-willed yourself if you're going to actually partake in anything like this. And I'm not condoning this. I'm not suggesting that people go out and do it. But, I mean, fuck, dude. People are going to do it anyway. It's like it's probably so much more prevalent now in schools than it even was back when I was in high school and I was in college. So, you know, you have to be strong-willed. And so I have a good friend. I'll withhold,
Sure.
you know, I'll withhold names. We'll just call him Ben. And Ben was a good friend of mine, and he one night took a healthy amount of LSD, and he took what we call a 10 strip, which is basically 10 hits that are all in one giant strip. And let's just say he didn't have the greatest night.
Sure.
It was an experience where I saw someone who is not strong-willed like fall into this sort of state of basically believing anything that his mind was telling him. And that's like a dangerous place to be. When you're strong-willed, you're like, oh, that's right. I took some shit. It's going to mess me up a little bit. Like, don't, you know, you can't fall into that spiral. But I heard him call himself crazy. He asked me how he should tell his parents that he found out that he was crazy. The next morning, when like you should have been okay coming out of it, he still was just he was never the same person, man. So you got to be careful. But if you're not confident in yourself, if you don't, if you're not confident in sort of you're being strong-willed, then you better stay the fuck away from that shit. And that is a safety message from me to you.
There you go.
But I mean, like, it was fun, right? A lot of it was just video games and going to see movies and, finding stray cats and finding out they were pregnant like 6 months later and then having a litter of kittens and, like all sorts of great stuff. But I learned who I was. I went through some amazing experience. I went trading for the world. But, yeah, it was fun times, JP. I'll just leave it at that.
Now, as a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up? Did you want to be like an astronaut, or were you kind of dead set on being what you are?
I guess everyone goes through that astronaut phase, right?
Yeah,
I went to Kennedy Space Center and all that shit, and that's great. Reach for the stars, man. But I went through phases late, like into my high school career. When I first started really getting into techno and electronic music, I really wanted to write music. But I also, I've always played guitar. I was in a band. So I always liked being a performer and being in music. I was a debater like my good buddy Jeff in Control Robinson. And that's where a lot of the speaking abilities come from. But I really wanted to make computer games, actually. When I grew up, and one of the games that made me want to make computer games was EA's Wastelands. If you're familiar with it, they just did a Kickstarter to try to remake a sequel. But this game came at a time for me where I was just kind of discovering games. It was a lot of bullshit. And I finally discovered a game that like had a real story and drew me in and was challenging and let me play it the way I wanted to play it. And I was like, damn it, I want to make games like this. And so I've always had a very, I guess, a big spot in my heart for video games. So I think that's why I tried to pursue computer science, to like get after the programming side. But if I were to even go into video game creation now, I think I would definitely go into like a developer or a producer type role.
Do you ever see yourself doing that kind of after all is said and done in the future?
I suppose that if the opportunity was there, JP, that I would. It's one of those things where it's like it's so hard for me to even like fantasize about something like that, because I immediately think about all the things that I'd have to sacrifice, and that's not worth it to me, So
Gotcha.
It's not yet, anyway.
Gotcha. Well, before we kind of get into the whole esports and gaming and whatnot, I still want to spend some more time with your personal life. Now, how did you meet? How did you meet your wife, Jen? And when was this?
I met Jen in college. So we met. One of her friends knew one of my mutual friends, and we met and we hit it off, and we dated for about a year and a half. Spent a lot of time together, and then she moved away, man. She moved away to Houston, and the last day that she was supposed to come and see me before she left for Houston, I worked as a valet. This was right before I got the computer jobs. I worked for a valet. This is still when I was in college. I did anything for money in college, right? So I gave plasma. I worked at a computer store. I worked as a valet. So if people are like, how does he do so much stuff? It was because I would work 3 fucking jobs all the time. But anyway, I was working at the valet, and at this valet there was a huge incline because it was in downtown Lincoln, Nebraska. It's called AG's Town Parking, and it was like a 4-story parking lot. But I was coming down with a Nebraska state rental car, or not rental car, but like if anyone from the state, the government needed to use this car, it got like leased out to them. The building was right next to us. I'm coming down and I'm rounding the corner and I'm hitting that spot, JP, where normally I start tapping that brake a little bit, like, what's up down there, buddy? Like, hey, you're going to save my life because I bet you're going to work when I start hitting you. And, my foot, like, kind of goes a little bit further than it normally does on a brake. And I'm like, what the fuck? What is going? And all of a sudden, like, my foot sinks to the floor. And I'm like, holy fuck, man. Like, the brakes are going out. Now, here's what happens is, like, people would come to get their cars, and there was one exit to this place. So we would get the car, park it there, and then they would get out, and the next person would get in their car and drive away. So at the time, there was this giant fucking truck in front of me, parked at the bottom, stationary thing, and I'm coming down this ramp, and I'm like, oh my God. We don't put our seatbelts on when we valet cars. I did every time after this, but I'm like, I think I might die. I have to actually react here or I might be fucked. So I did the most logical thing that I could think of. I looked to my left. Well, that was the entrance to the Fix It Up garage. I looked to my right. I looked to my left, and I see my boss's precious Audi. He loves this thing, man. He fucking would take it to bed. He makes us wash it like every other day. And I'm like, that's the only thing that's going to stop this momentum because I know that he parks it right there flat with his emergency brake on. So I just dart the fucking car into his Audi. It slams like 5 feet backwards, hits another car. I literally bounce off the Audi into the fucking glass-encased office.
Oh.
And my boss comes up with this look of terror on his face. I'm like, dude, the brakes went out. And out of the corner of my eyes, I watch my now wife and best friend like 15 feet away from this whole crash. And I never even got to say goodbye.
Oh, no.
Yes, yeah. So she was gone for 3 years. She came back. And we got back together. And we got married. So there you go.
Now, did she know from the start, maybe even the first night, that you're actually just a huge-ass nerd? Or did you hide it from her?
Dude, let me tell you something. Going through Jen's old photo albums are hilarious because most of them are... What are you doing, Minnie? Get away. Your real talk's coming later. Most of them are me at my computer. And so if you go through a photo book, there's one. Dude, stop photobombing. If you go through, there's one that says, Marcus at his damn computer. So, yes, she knows exactly what she got into. And when she came back the second time, that's when I was traveling. That's when I was playing Quake 3. It's when, I was into the esports thing at that point.
What are her thoughts on kind of the whole esports phenomenon? I mean, she's been with you. How many years have you guys kind of been together?
We've been married since, I'm terrible, 2004.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot like that, but she's kind of seen the evolution.
2004.
Okay.
But
okay.
We have known each other since 96.
Okay. So she's kind of seen the evolution of everything occur. What are her thoughts on it? I mean, there's got to be times, which we'll eventually get to this, but just bring it up now, where you'll go to LA and work for CGS, then it falls, and she kind of sees the after effects of that. Is she always wary of esports and how it can just kind of on a dime turn?
I'm always wary,
shit?
dude. Like,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. Like, the nice thing is that we're wary together. Okay. And that was like, I think that was actually the key to us figuring things out. In a relationship, it doesn't really work out if you're like, yo, bitch, we move into this town and this is how we're going to do it. It's got to be like you have a family, you have a wife. Like, this is a decision that involves more than one person. So, yes, a ton of sacrifices are made on, my family's behalf, but every single decision is ours to make. A lot of people are going to be like, we can't make his own decision. Be like, dude, when you're in these shoes, you'll understand. You wouldn't buy a house. Like, you would be like, surprise, honey, I bought a house, you know? You wouldn't be like, honey, surprise, today I adopted 2 African babies. You know, it's like, it's no different. Like, whether the job is in esports or the job is like, honey, I'm going to go be, you know, an animator for a startup studio in you know, Canada, or I want to go be a singer, or, you know, shit, I want to, you know, fuck, I don't know. What other jobs are out there? There's a million of them. I want to make M&Ms. I don't know. Like, whatever you want to do, like, it's still, if you have a job, if you have like a stable foundation, it's a decision that you make together. So, you know, yes, she's wary. We're all wary. And that aspect's, you know, very important to us, because stability is here, but it's kind of it's an interesting stability, because we don't know how things are going to change in 5 years, how things will change in 10 years, how things could change tomorrow.
Right.
So, I mean, everyone, I give this advice to everyone, is that just weigh your options. You know, it's okay to take risks, but take smart risks. There's a difference between a stupid risk and a smart risk. You know, stupid risk is like going, these 2 buildings look pretty far apart, but I might be able to make it. Or you go find a ladder that'll reach. You know, you put it between the 2. You might die, but hey, it's a smarter risk. Take the smarter risk, JP.
Right.
It's just, you know, it's gotten me through a lot in life.
Now, when James, who we just saw on the screen there, was born, did that change you at all?
Dude, you know, all the, you watch those movies and all that cliche bullshit about, you know, being a dad, and like the moment they're born, everything changes. Let me tell you how true that shit is. My wife and I played Guild Wars at a top level, mind you, during her pregnancy for 9 months. We literally, up to pretty much the night before she gave birth, were playing Guild Wars every single night.
Okay.
And the moment James was out, like, that was done. I mean, everything changed. And of course it changes because now you're in charge of another human being. But that starts shaping the way you think, the way that you see things, the way that your attitude is towards things. So yeah, it's an amazing thing, man. You made life. Like, and for me, I'm excited because I want to pass my legacy, or as much as I can, down to him, you know? I want to be able to give him some of the freedoms that I had, not necessarily because my parents wouldn't give me them, but because I didn't have the technology to have those freedoms, if that makes any sense at all. Right.
So when your son kind of started playing games and most recently streaming, how did that make you feel? Were you nervous about that? Were you excited? Were you ecstatic?
No, I absolutely wasn't. And let me just go back real quick, JP.
Sure.
One of the smartest things that I ever did as a gamer father, a gamer dad, was the following. If you are about to have a kid, get the cheapest laptop that can use a mouse that you possibly can, okay? At about 2 or 3 years old, there's a plethora of web pages that one can visit that are actually geared towards, you know, 3-year-old shapes, numbers, just really simple stuff, very interactive. This was my philosophy, is that if I could teach my son control at the youngest age possible, then he would get an early start on his ability to have phenomenal control. As an FPS player, as an RTS player, everyone knows how important that actually is. So what we did is we have this laptop, we have this mouse, and we jack the Windows sensitivity all the way up, so 10. So literally, like, you would blow on this mouse, and it would, like, fly across the screen. And every week, I decreased the sensitivity a little bit. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever seen him stream, but go watch him play Minecraft and go, holy shit, like this kid can navigate a 3D space really, really well. Well, it was literally like a year of doing that to the point where like he has unbelievable accuracy with the mouse. It's out of this world, dude. I cannot believe how good and how fast he is. And like this to me is like this. He is a mind-blowing human experiment, JP. Because imagine this, right? I'm like a huge technology guy. Like, have my iPhone, have my iPad, have 3 computers. 20,000 monitors, blah blah blah. I love technology. If I could have grown up with technology like this around me, I just imagine how much further ahead I could be. How many more things I could have accomplished in my lifetime. I want to give all those freedoms. That's what I was talking about earlier. All those freedoms and all those opportunities to my son. So to go back to your original question, no, man. To me, streaming is the fucking future, dude. Like, look at how much streaming has been embraced over the, even in the YouTube generation over the past few years. It's mind-blowing. I'd rather him grow up in the society where, like, this is a normal thing. This is something that, he's good at doing, that he's comfortable doing, that he has the ability to be able to, that he has the ability to, understand that technology. I don't start his stream anymore. He starts his stream. He knows how to use XSplit better than probably half the people on Twitch right now. So I think it's an amazing learning experience.
If he grows up to kind of follow you in your footsteps, where be it as a broadcaster, I'm just going to use the word hacker again because I can't go inside what you said there. Someone who's so good at computers they can open up a command prompt and find their way around, or anything like that. Are you okay with that?
Super user. There you go.
A super user. Okay. Are you 100% fine with that?
With him growing up that way?
Yeah, to be basically what you are.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, people always, for me, I was in, when I did information technology, JP, like, I was on a help desk. So I worked on a help desk. I eventually came on to manage said help desk. And then I started joining server teams. And, like, understanding computers and having that sort of brain that's capable of doing that, people will know, especially if you've got a job in information technology, the best individuals in IT are the ones who can problem solve, who can troubleshoot like nobody's business. And that was me. I got really successful in the IT world because I'm really good at troubleshooting stuff. In fact, it's probably one of the reasons why I'm here and have been doing this for so long, is because shit wouldn't work, but I wouldn't give up. I'll go buy another computer. I'll go get another sound card. I'll try these 5 sound cards. Like, I won't give up. I want to solve these problems. So, if my son takes even a fraction of those skills, absolutely, man, I would be thrilled as a father, because that is a remarkable path to take. So, again, going back to the technology, I think that it creates a quicker, accelerated learning environment for someone like him. The fact that he's browsing web pages right now, man. Like 30 years ago, I was probably bored out of my fucking mind watching a black and white TV going, why is hee-haw on, man? Why isn't there something good on television? Why do we have 3 channels? It's horse shit. We don't have a VCR yet. It's too soon. He's browsing web pages, man. That blows my mind. So what I find interesting, JP, is that obviously in esports and gaming, we have a lot of young individuals that will eventually learn this, that will find out, that will understand why I get excited about when my kid learns something or does something that I think's amazing. It's because, it is fucking amazing. And I can't wait until everyone gets the opportunity to experience that. Then I also have that epiphany moment where they, like, every single negative fucking comment that they've ever made is like hitting their brain. They're like, it's like bad flashbacks. It's like, oh my God, oh fuck, I actually said that. Holy shit. And then it's when you actually grow up.
There you go.
That is what growing up feels like. And you don't have to, like, grow up. You just got to grow up. You'll know,
There you go. Do you shield them from the dark parts of the community at all? Do you have that kind of...
I don't have to yet. I don't really have to yet. that time will come. But the good news is that I'm not your typical, dad, right? I'm not the guy that's like, let's see if there's some sort of parental control. What's this Google program over here? No, I will be the guy that will lock that shit down so hard I will have his passwords. I will monitor everything that he does. Will be nothing that he can hide from me. And you know what, JP? It's kind of a secret plan, right? Because if I hold the key to all that shit and he figures out a way around it, I won't ground him. I will congratulate him.
There you go. What is it like? I mean, you're going to different countries, different states, pretty much every other weekend, if not every weekend. Being that far away from your kid and being away from your kid that much, how hard is that as a father for you?
It's tough, man. It sucks. It's like, imagine anyone that's important in your life and then just imagine what it'd be like when they're just not there for, 30% of the month, sometimes 40% of the month, 50%. It sucks. Thankfully, we do have technology that, I can FaceTime with them. I can Skype with them. They can still watch, streams, which isn't exactly like an interactive family experience, but, it's better than not being around, right? So it's tough, man, and it's a balance that's very difficult to find. My dad traveled a lot, so it's weird because I guess I didn't, JP, I don't remember over going, God, my dad's not around. Like, fuck, what am I, I just kind of was like, well, that's his job. I remember like it's what he does.
Right.
Yeah, it sucks that I can't go with him on these trips and everything, but that's what he did. So I think that James feels that way a little bit, but it's not easy, and it never will be. It's just the travel itself. It's tires you out. It sucks. It's the worst part about it, man. Teleportation.
We need it.
God, man. If all of the negativity on the internet could be funneled into creating teleportation, shit, man.
Would we have it already?
Like, we would have been watching Back to the Future, be like, what's this fucking baby technology building that shit into a car? Like, give me a break. And that's like one of the greatest movies of all time. Shit.
Now, the final question I have kind of about family and your personal side of your personal life and all that. At MLG Anaheim, I was going around collecting all the casters, and I never really take up pass by an opportunity to go and yell at someone. So you're doing an interview, and I apologize to this person if they're watching. They might. they might watch it, but I was a complete dick. But basically, we needed you behind the main stage to do some rehearsals and whatnot. And do what?
To sit in the chair.
Yeah, to sit in the chair. That's my role. Is I told people to sit in chairs. As I walked up, they were asking you questions about your family, and they hit on one about your mother. And she was at the event at MLG Anaheim, and it was one of the few times where I've actually seen you get you were actually pretty emotional. What was it like for you to have your mother at MLG Anaheim and to kind of have her experience what you had been doing for so long? Was that her first event as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was her first event. So it was all sorts of crazy emotion because I'd like been away from them for a while. My mom's like getting married soon. We had a divorce in our family. I think it was like 97, maybe no, 2000. Wow. So it was like, for her to be there and for her to see all that, like, yeah, I was so proud, that I could finally show her all this stuff, that I could, introduce her to all those people that I'd met and I talked about, so that she could kind of see it. It was awesome because she got to see her grandson basically, walk around this place and people walk up and be like, hey, can I take a picture with Mini-Wheat? Which then on day one actually freaked her out. But, it was it's funny because my mom has always supported me all the time in all this. I mean, when I came home for the first time, I was like, Mom and Dad, I'm going to Korea. I'm going over there. I'm going to commentate, man. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm going to get over there. I don't even know if there'll be someone who speaks English, but God damn it, I'm going to go do it. They're like, well, that is just fantastic, Marcus. You go do that. When I told them I was moving to LA, they were like, that's great. You just go do that. And growing up, it's really funny because I was that kid who everyone was like, that is one crazy son of a bitch. Like, he runs his mouth all the time. He talks big. He does stuff, but, like, you know, he's kind of weird. You know, even my best friends, like Force, who's on Epileptic Gaming with me, you know, all my, nice guy Ed, he was my best man at my wedding. Like, they were all like, dude, you're just, like, you're fucking crazy, man. I'm like, why do you shoutcast these games and shit? Like, why do you do the... It wasn't until this year where they're finally like, wow, Wheat's actually not that fucking crazy. Like, he actually is, like, he's doing what he's always said he was going to do, and he's following his dreams, and fuck, man, I'm, like, kind of surprised. But this took me, like, 20 years for me to fucking... Almost 20 years to, like, pound into these guys' heads. So, to be able to show anyone that from my life, like what this is, and to experience that, and you know, they feel that energy. They kind of like, they're like, wow, this is amazing. They've never seen anything like it before. It's awesome. So yeah, man, I was like crazy emotional that day. It was like starting day, like you know, we had breakfast, and it was just a really, really cool feeling, and I'm glad that my mom got the opportunity to experience it.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't want to, going back to that day, I felt so bad pulling you away from that interview, man.
It's okay, man. I was set up for that interview.
Okay.
I guess when people see it, but someone set me up. Like, they knew exactly the questions to ask, and it just so happened on, like, the day where they would have impacted me the most. So,
gotcha.
Just funny it worked out that way, I guess.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about your career in esports. You have seen literally the rise and fall of leagues several times over, and you've been involved with most of them at one point or another. Take me back to the first job event role you had within the industry. The very first one.
Are you talking about like volunteer?
Yeah, the very first experience where you were working.
The first role I had in esports was as a player, man. First and foremost, I played Quake. That's what got me into everything. Playing Quake, I played first-person shooters. I played a bunch of those games competitively. It wasn't until Quake 3 where I actually started playing for money. But I started out first and foremost as a player. I know it's kind of a cop-out answer, but you know, I believe in that answer. But as I was still a player, I started to do things that sort of like had my needle going in the direction of coverage, of being in media, of this was before I even was a commentator. I wrote for a website called Shaq ES, and it stood for Shaq Esports. And yes, it was, basically the same system that Shaq News uses today. It was absolutely a fucking incredible site. I was not djWHEAT back then. I was Styles 519. I learned a lot about writing. I learned a lot about working with communities. I learned a lot about trolling. I learned a lot about what you should and shouldn't say, regardless of fluff or no fluff. I think like I kind of matured out of that role eventually, but that was kind of, I would say that it was as sort of a writer. I was more a satirical writer. I didn't really post news. I did like all like opinionated editorial type pieces. But I love that website. I wish it was still around. If anyone out there has an archive of it, man, I would love to have that in my collection because many, many great memories from that website are contained within. So there you have it.
That's what I was going to ask. Are any of those pieces that you wrote, are those on the web? Do you have any of those still?
Actually, I do have a lot of my old writing, but, half of it was the comments, dude. Like, half of it was was just absolutely like, that was that culture then. So
Yeah.
I don't know. Someone out there will have visited Shacky S at some point, but it's not around any longer.
Yeah.
Sad.
Can you kind of run through and list the organization or / leagues you've been a part of and your role very briefly in all of them?
That
I know
I've
it's quite
actually worked for, because I couldn't, not like shoutcasted, but actually worked for.
Yeah, actually worked for. Correct.
All right, so my first company I ever worked for or volunteered for was TSN. I left TSN to start ITG, Radio ITG, which was TSN's biggest competitor. I ended up selling inside the game, Radio ITG. A lot of people don't know this, but of course the name was, and even the logo is resurrected from that old, from the old station. And additionally, like ITG was pretty much the start for Tasteless, start for Tosspot, the start for Red Eye. Yeah. I mean, it was really when like we began making a name for ourselves because we defected from TSN and started doing things a little bit differently. The best female caster of all time, Trillion, and no one can say differently. She was and still remains the best. But ITG sold ITG to Global Gaming League. Worked for Global Gaming League. That's when I did like EG and all those crazy esports ideas that were like way ahead of its time. Left GGL to join CGS. From CGS, after it closing its doors, I came back home, started working for the bank again, and I created djWHEAT.tv. After djWHEAT.tv grew too big, I didn't want to call it djWHEAT.tv anymore because I felt like it was pretentious and I wanted to add more content to my network. So I decided to start One More Game, which was like sort of a project that I was thinking about or working on for like about 4 years. And then I joined Twitch, and here I am.
Which one of those would you consider to be kind of your big breakout moment? The one that gave you the GGL by far?
Well, I mean, it's so hard to say because TSN was my breakout moment. That was it. It was the first time I shoutcasted. I went to QuakeCon 2012. That was when I established myself.
Wait, what is with you in 2012?
I meant 2002. QuakeCon 2002. I was like, that was the year where I really established myself. QuakeCon 2002 is the reason I got invited out to Daejeon, Korea to do the World Cyber Games 2002. So that's when the snowball started running down the hill. But it wasn't until GGL when I not only got great opportunities, but I also learned so much about business. It was when I got to learn how to not run a company. And it was the best, even though it was the hardest, it was the best learning experience I could have possibly had. I mean, this company fucked up left and right. And I essentially got to learn from all their mistakes without suffering from directly the consequences of said mistakes. I mean, I suffered, right? Late paychecks, sometimes not getting paid at all, being asked to work on ridiculous projects for like ridiculous deadlines, all sorts of crazy shit, man. So I just feel like without that job, I couldn't have the insight that I have now. And that's why I am sort of the way I am these days. It's why I carry a lot of optimism, but I'm incredibly pessimistic about certain ideas and certain ways of doing things because I've seen a lot of it crumble. And this was during the time where esports was really trying to make a breakthrough,
right,
but it was having a really, really hard time doing so. Yeah. It was also the dawn of streaming, so it let me dive into that role at that time. So.
You mentioned that GGL kind of made a lot of mistakes along the way. Was there a single mistake that maybe you would say you learned the most from that kind of today, on a day-to-day basis, you think back?
Don't fucking spend money unwisely. Like, how fucking hard is that, man? Are you, hey, man, the iPhone came out. Cool. Let's buy a gold-dipped iPhone. Oh, hey, man. look at this e-cig I got. Oh, that's great, man, but look at my fucking diamond-crusted e-cig. You know, like, why spend money stupidly? Still to this day, I think that companies spend money stupidly. A lot of companies have wised up. But it's like a huge mistake that a lot of new companies make. In some cases, it can pay off. In a lot of cases, money can be spent in better places. So, you know, that was one of the biggest things. Also, just how to deal with people in business.
Now,
you know, like,
oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. I mean, just how to respect people, how to talk people, how to conduct yourself during business negotiation and deals. It's like that was one thing that those guys are actually good at. That's how they were able to get more money just to spend it, is that they were good business people, but they were just terrible business spenders, and they didn't have infrastructure in place that really facilitated that properly. You know, CGS did the same thing. They spent too much fucking money.
Yeah.
And then...
Was there a specific person at GGL that you think you learned the most from? Or
oh, yeah.
Kind of your
Fred the Jackhammer Ordauer, dude. This guy is fucking amazing, man. Fred Ordauer, like, I would give $1 million. Actually, I don't have $1 million. But, I bet you can look up Fred Ordauer on. I bet you could look him up on just Google. I'm trying to see. Fred Ordauer is like the most amazing guy that one of the most amazing businessmen I've ever met. He is one of the guys responsible for bringing the police to the United States, for you know, bringing Bruce Springsteen over to Europe. He worked with media newspapers and companies on like putting together tour strategies as they were coming to different cities. And the guy was just smart as shit, and he knew how to get a little bit more out of everything, but everyone was still his friend. So he was always able to squeeze a few extra drops out of that fucking orange when no one else could. And at the end of the day, that orange was like, thank you for squeezing those few extra drops out of me, man. Like, he was a guy who I looked up to, who was gave amazing advice, who helped out my family when you know, we came across hard times. Like, if I could go back, you know, in 15 years, even longer, and say that a lot of my success is attributed to these handful of people, he will be one of those people on my list. He's just an absolutely amazing man, and I absolutely thank him and think about, you know, what he did for me personally every day when, you know, especially on those days where I'm down on myself or I don't want to do something. The guy could motivate you. He could kick your ass into gear when you had nothing left. Like, he's just an incredible man.
Would you say that a lot of your success you owe to him in a sense these days, or?
No, because I feel like the person that I owe the most to is myself, because I worked my fucking ass off to get where I'm at. And no one else casted Quake for, you know, 7 days a week, 4 hours a night, back when we only got 100 to 200 people like tuning into a podcast every night. Like, I did that because I loved it. And, you know, I wasn't even working hard to make it someplace. I just fucking loved to do it. So I look back on it, I'm like, dude, whether I realized it or not, that was like practice. Practice hosting, practice shoutcasting, learn more about gamers, learn how to present scores properly, learn how to intro and outro out of games. Like, I was basically conditioning myself to be exactly where I'm at now. I mean, exactly where I'm at now. So he is on the list of people who have helped me, you know, who've like put a stone in front of me to help me go further. But absolutely, I will always give myself credit for just putting forth a lot of hard work. And that is the biggest key to success in anything, is that you just got to fucking work at it. You know, I'm watching Home Story Cup and Evo over here on my other two monitors, and every single guy on here who is a champion fucking worked to make it there.
Right, right.
And that's, that's how I feel about where I'm at today.
Well, after DGL, you mentioned that you basically moved your entire life to LA and worked for CGS.
No, I was living in LA already.
Oh,
In fact,
okay.
we moved to LA. I started working for GGL, and a few months later, that's when Jen and I got pregnant.
Oh,
That's
okay.
when. Sorry, my camera. Well, I didn't get pregnant, but yeah, that's when. Lurkers. That's when. That's basically when we had James.
Well, when the
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, CGS, right?
yeah when CGS approached you, and you knew about it before everyone else kind of knew what was going on.
Yeah, actually, I did both their pilot programs. They did 2 pilot programs before they launched CGS. One of them was the CGI 1, and the other one was CGI 2. They were like standalone, pre-recorded bits, and they were basically pilots for the CGS.
And when you were first approached with that, now not talking about the fall of the league or anything of how they fucked up, what was your at that moment in time? Were you still were you thinking like this is it? This is going to be the big breakthrough?
No, not at all. Not at all. Actually, I did not think that at all. But what I did feel like is it was a natural progression in like what I was doing. I had done a lot more video work. This was television. I felt like I kind of have learned what I need to learn in terms of broadcasting and then sort of like the studio setup. And I wanted to be exposed to sort of the next level of production. So that was a very conscious choice by me to join up. Also, I wanted this league to succeed, obviously, but I did not think it was going to, be the end all be all. I also do not deny that things were getting pretty rough at GGL. And it was definitely a time of reflection to go, look, we either need to go back to Nebraska. We have a kid now. We can't be fucking around with late paychecks and shit like that. We need to find something stable, or we just need to go back, and I need to go start working IT again. So he said, hey, here's CGS. They're going to offer us more money. It's television. I really want to do it. It's here locally. Less travel. Let's do it. So, again, I talked earlier about that, making that decision together. It was a decision that my wife and I made, but ultimately this one, she basically said, if you want to do it, I think that that's what you need to do. But she was obviously supportive of it because she didn't want to deal with the GGL stuff either. So that was like another phenomenal decision that I made for myself, because I did get to work with some amazing people in television. And that was another sort of chapter of my life where I would not trade the skills and the people that I got to work with at those organizations, for the world.
When things started to go bad at CGS, when it first started, did you know or did you believe kind of in the back of your mind?
I knew going in there that things were bad.
Really?
Well, I didn't think they were shut down bad, but I knew that they were like, okay, season 1 didn't work. Now we really got to change some shit up for season 2. I was also one of those guys that were like, don't go international. You're going to waste your fucking money. And they wasted all their money. So what happened was CGS was a league that could have survived for 5 years. It actually could have survived for 5 years, which is crazy to think, because if it would have survived for 5 years, Street Fighter 4 would have come out. StarCraft 2 would have hit. Yeah. League of Legends would have been coming out on the scene. Like, one of the biggest problems that CGS had is that its games were shit. The presentation of it was all really good. Team concept, it was actually pretty fucking good. So I knew that it wasn't necessarily like this is going to fail tomorrow bad, but JP, like, I knew, like, hopefully I can come on and I can help make a difference. They wanted to change. They wanted some fresh ideas. Unfortunately, when it came down to it, they had already spent too much money.
Were you surprised when it fucked up everything as bad as it did in esports? Or do you think that's over-exaggerated?
I don't think it fucked up shit as bad as it did in esports. Did it fuck up the 1.6 scene in the United States? Absolutely. Did it, but did it actually, like, make esports take a few steps backwards? I don't think so. I think esports was already at this stagnant point in time. We didn't have video streaming quite yet. What we did have was very expensive. It was still a pain in the ass to do. It was just starting to emerge then. People didn't even know how they were going to be able to monetize it, even though it was there. So there was still no money in esports. So, putting it on television seemed like a logical thing to do, but if you're going to spend a lot of money, you've got to have a plan to make a lot of money. And going international for them totally fucked it up. But no, I do not believe that they hampered esports as badly as people say they did.
When it finally shut down, when you finally knew that you weren't going to be getting a paycheck from them anymore, what was your outlook at that moment? Were you just on to the next one right away?
Oh man, no, that was
did it hit you really
crazy. Hard? I was on unemployment after CGS, believe it or not. I stuck around for about a month and a half in Los Angeles. Had a few almost opportunities, but it's actually better that I didn't take them. Believe it or not, I was actually thinking about when I took my CGS offer. I actually had 2 offers on the table, one for MLG and one for CGS. But I ended up taking the CGS offer. But I don't know, a little tidbit of history there.
In another universe, maybe you were working
in another
for MLG.
universe. Who knows? God, now I totally forgot the question. What were we?
When CGS died, how rough was that for you?
Right. So I was on unemployment. I tried to find a few opportunities. The opportunities didn't really pan out or couldn't really support me and my family. So we own a house in Nebraska. The logical thing for us to do, being unemployed, was that we would go back. We'd go to the cheaper place to live. I would try to get another job in information technology. There was still no, bubble forming, or there was still no, esports was what it was. So I just kept going on that end. I wasn't going to give up that shit. But I looked for a job and looked for a job and looked for a job and did my shows. Started Live on 3, started, all these other shows, and eventually got a job at the bank again. And once I started working at the bank was really good. I was in charge of a little product called a Segra. It was called Loctite Admin. I did administration of about 250 off-site backup servers or locations, each one with anywhere from 10 to 20 servers, over-the-wire replication, backups, restores, all that shit. And then eventually I was doing that on top of esports. That's when I was writing that Life of a Caster blog and basically working about 80 to 100 hours a week. And then the Twitch opportunity came up. So that period between CGS and moving back and getting my job at the bank was so hard. It was so hard, but for our family, it was a big growth time for us because we went through some really, are we going to be able to pay rent? Are we going to be able to do this? And sometimes those are some of the best times to experience because it really makes you appreciate what you have when you have it.
Now, how long was your eventual project, One More Game TV, kind of an idea or a thought before it became a real thing?
I actually thought of One More Game TV while I was working at CGS. So it was about 2007 that I started working on that.
What was the thing that made it become kind of a real living, breathing entity? It was kind of like a combination of timing and me wanting to get rid of djWHEAT.tv. I really hate djWHEAT.tv. It was weird because I started it because I was like, what the fuck do I do? I don't want to do one more game because I'm just not ready. I don't want to half-ass it. So I'm like, I'll just kind of do this blog. The .tv domain's popular. I'll make it djWHEAT.tv. And then I was like, the shows I do are great. They're fun, but God, I would really love it if I could ask some other people if they, let's try to create a network or something. But I couldn't, hey, JP, I hear you got this great show. Come over and do it on djWHEAT.tv.
I'm like, wait, I don't want to be that fucking douchebag. Like, I don't want to be that guy. So I wanted to move away from that, and I felt like a few people sort of, gave me a push, said, dude, do one more. Like, now is the time. Bring it to life. And so we did. And I'm glad that we did. It's like still a lot of work to do, but yeah, that was a sort of an idea, and it changed obviously a ton. So it's not even close to what the original idea was. But
I gotta ask, and I don't think there's any ill will or anything like that, but a lot of the viewers, when you're mentioning that you wouldn't name something djWHEAT.tv, it's pretentious, etc. The Good Studio. Do you care about that name at all? Do you think that's? I mean, is that just kind of a joke?
Good Studio, real talk. The Good Studio, and like JP, I'm a guy. Like, one of my knacks in this world is that I come up with pretty fucking good names. Like, I pat myself on the back. Like, I come up with some good names. The Good Studio to me is like the byproduct of coming up with about 30 names that suck ass and settling for the one that was okay. So,
okay,
right. It like James knows that. I mean, it is his studio after all.
Right.
Like.
All right. Well, with one real talk question followed by another one, was Inside the Game designed to be a direct competitor with State of the Game?
No, not really. It just kind of was the fact that they wanted something that was similar along the line.
They being who? Can you?
Well, I mean the Illuminati that are in charge of one per game. Yeah, okay. I mean, like, Inside the Game is actually the one show that I really wanted to do because of the talent, but is probably not the show I love doing the most.
Why is that?
Well, it's a much harder show than like people can realize, because, like, I mean, I love those three guys to death, dude, but it's kind of one man puts it together. Unfortunately, that it's me, and like, it's one of those shows where you have this image of grandeur that like everyone's going to be contributing, like, hey guys, I played this replay, man, we should talk about this on it, and it just, like, we're all so busy that it doesn't quite work out that way.
Yeah, it sounds oddly familiar.
Yeah, right. Like, I'm sure you can relate, dude. So, no, it wasn't. It actually, I mean, even what it started out as was supposed to be way different, but technology wasn't there on how the Illuminati originally wanted it presented. And I respected that. Like, I was a part of that too. Like, you can't, if it's not going to work, it's not going to work.
Right.
But I think that it most certainly, like, people got that impression. Just the names itself, the fact that Jeff was on both. But I mean, like, truly, if we wanted to be competitors,
at the time, Jeff wasn't. When you started that show, Jeff wasn't a part of State of the Game anymore, I think. Did he start on both shows? I think he just started on Inside the Game, and then.
Shit, I can't even remember what I ate for breakfast, man.
Yeah, I want to say he just started on ITG, and then eventually whatever happened. I guess I'll answer that I'll answer that on my version of Real Talk.
Well,
one day.
Since we're the same person anyway, JP, like, the show's practically the same. So
maybe the person in the alternate dimension that went on to work for MLG gained a little bit of weight. That's actually me. It's a version of you. You're the version that went on to work for CGS. You never know.
Maybe.
You never know. Now, why did Weapon of Choice die off? I know you had a lot of fun working with Chill on that. What was the reason behind that?
I loved working with Chill. I absolutely loved it. Unfortunately, like, Weapon of Choice, so the history of Weapon of Choice is Weapon of Choice started when it was like World of Warcraft. I was playing World of Warcraft, and
Hold on. You're playing World of Warcraft.
Oh, yeah. Actually, this is so fucking funny because remember Total Biscuit told you the story about WoW Radio on Real Talk?
Yes.
Weapon of Choice was the fucking name of the show that I created for WoW Radio. What Total Biscuit didn't tell you is that I joined WoW Radio as an agent of esports because I wanted to acquire them. So what my plan was to show them that I could really help out their broadcasters by showing them how to do a show, showing them how to create content, setting up their technology. And the only way that I was going to be able to do that is if I sort of like gained their trust and came on and was a team player, etc. Right. And you know, so he mentioned Athelis, who was in charge of WoW Radio. Well, unfortunately for me, Athelis got cold feet, and the world could have been a totally different place, JP, because if we would have gone through and we had the webpage done, like everything was fucking done. This was like the 11th hour Athelis pulls out of this shit. That TB would have actually worked for Inside the Game. But what ended up happening was Athelis said no. I was like, okay, well, we're going to go do the esports thing. And TB basically took over WoW Radio and fucking completely just kicked the shit out of it. He killed it. Yeah. And so it's just so crazy that like our paths like almost crossed, but just like kind of came and then went like that again. Because I always knew who Total Biscuit was, but we just never worked together. I just knew he was the guy that basically took over WoW Radio and fixed everything. So, by the way, the people only defected from WoW Radio to ITG because they actually wanted the merger to happen. They wanted us to acquire them, TB. So you got brought on late, but that was why. I'm sure you probably heard a ton of rumors how I was a dick, an asshole, whatever, but it all worked out okay, I think.
There you go. All right, now back to weapon of choice. Why did it die off with Chill?
Oh, yeah. So anyway, weapon of choice.
Sorry, you brought up WoW, and I was like, oh, God, I got to hit on this.
Yeah, we got it. So it started off as a WoW show. Then it became a Guild Wars show because I was like, yeah, fuck World of Warcraft, man. Guild Wars is where it's at. And then I stopped playing Guild Wars after James was born, and I was like, God, I love StarCraft 2. I want to bring back a show that just talks about the game that they love and like has community interaction. I'm like, holy shit, weapon of choice. So you bring back Weapon of Choice, which is so perfect. Like, it's a great name. It fits fantastically. And I had this conversation with Kennigan. I'm like, Kennigan, who the fuck should be my co-host for this thing? I talked to Hotbit about it, and both of them suggested Chill. So literally, like, Chill and I had a conversation. I was like, you're a cool dude. He's like, yeah, you're kind of okay yourself. I'm like, let's do a show. He's like, yeah, word. We did a show. We had this sort of, like, almost odd couple chemistry, and, you know, it was great. The biggest problem is that Weapon of Choice became a catalyst for redundant content on the network, which meant that like we would end up like it because Weapon of Choice worked so well at the beginning, like during the beta and the beginning of StarCraft, because everything was so new. People were discovering all these new things. All this new stuff was coming out. These new websites. Look at this. What's the community working on? What are they talking about? Like, that was the heart and core of Weapon of Choice. Whereas, like, Live on 3 kind of went the event route and, you know, the coverage, predictions, etc. And Inside the Game kind of went the, like, community, strategy, sort of news event route, specifically for StarCraft 2. So there was a lot of overlap coverage. And it just kind of became too much. So Chill was getting more busy. I was getting more busy. And we sat down and we talked about it. And we both came to the decision. You know, it was hard, I think, for both of us. None of us really wanted to do it. I don't know that we ever really did it properly, to be honest with you. But Weapon of Choice is like a fucking phoenix, man. Just like Epileptic Gaming. That show will return. Sometime, someplace. Maybe it's for Heart of the Swarm. Maybe Chill and I get back together because everything's so new. And we say Weapon of Choice returns, even if for a little bit. But I love doing that show. Sort of has its own voice, but you know, frankly, anyone who's a content producer who experienced that problem of like sort of talking about a lot of the same stuff over and over, which we even do with our current lineup of shows, it was the right decision for us as One More Game. It was a terrible decision for the fans, and it was a rough decision for Chill and I. So sad it had to happen, but it will return one day.
Now, the final question I have kind of on the One More Game front, the organization is almost stagnant right now. You guys are doing your weekly shows and not really going outside that box. Do you guys have plans to bring on more shows, bring on other talent, potentially do some own? We see drawing parallels all the time to the Good Studio with you in One More Game. They're doing production for Asus coming up. You guys have done production before in the past for
the Masters Cup and a few events.
Masters Cup and Devastation.
Like 5-on-3 and whatnot. Or
well, I mean for like the LAN event type
games,
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
We did Devastation and World Cyber Games and some stuff like that.
Are there plans to do that in the future? What is kind of the next step for the organization?
No, I think kind of sticking to content. I mean, obviously there's a lot of things always going on. EG coming back, Epileptic Gaming coming back. You know, so a few other shows, a few other content creators. We've like dipped our toes in a little bit. You know, I would love to be doing more content. So, I mean, a lot of the goal from the beginning, JP, has been to bring more content on.
Right.
But we want to have a proper system in place, a proper structure to do that. So the last year has undoubtedly been growing pains, but they've been great growing pains because things have been going really well. I mean, of course, we have aspirations to do a lot more, and there's a ton in the works, a ton that we've been planning for quite some time. But it's like a slow and steady pace. I mean, it's a smaller project, definitely not as many people working on it. Everything I do from, you know, my house is all a one-man show. I do everything from graphics to production to, you know, topics, writing, you know, even putting shit up on TL. So there's still a lot of sort of busy work that I personally do for the shows because we're still in the process of like building out that structure.
Right.
It's also because I'm the kind of guy that like I like to do a lot of shit myself because I really have a hard time trusting a lot of people, and especially, you know, like I don't want shit to fuck up. So it's not easy. People will tell you like it's kind of annoying. But yeah, I mean, I think stagnant's actually a good word. Like it's interesting because we've continued to see growth, but I'm kind of like a horse waiting at the gates, and I just got to wait for the gates to open, you know. So slow and steady. That's kind of what we're doing, and you know, my biggest aspiration right now is to get Epileptic Gaming back on the air. So,
all right. Well, your current employer now is Twitch TV. What is your role at the company there on a day-to-day basis? And you work remotely. Actually, I think you just got back from San Francisco not too long ago. Day-to-day, what's your role, and how does it, working remotely, does that kind of hinder?
No, actually, because I worked in IT, I mean, working remotely is just a skill you have to learn. Some people say it's too distracting. I went into the office. That shit's too distracting. When someone can come up and tap you on the shoulder, you get a lot less shit done. When you're being called into every meeting because you could sit in, you get a lot less shit done. So working from home, I actually get a lot done. And I'm currently managing the NetDev team. So you know,
NetDev with network development.
Network development,
okay.
Yeah. So this is a role that like Kevin Lin is pretty much exclusively been in charge of. But as he, you know, works on more and more like strategic business type things for Twitch, he has less and less time to actually manage the team. So I'm taking over a lot of the management of that, and obviously he assists in quite a bit of it still. But that's everything from contracts, negotiations, tournament sponsorships, you know, just making sure shit goes okay, disciplining partners who do things they shouldn't do, and believe me, there are a lot of them. You know, working with.
Can you talk about that at all on partners you've had to I mean, not like, really, probably.
People just do stupid shit, right? Like. You may have seen it. They maybe like spam commercials when they go to sleep. Well, you can't fucking do that. That's actually fraudulent. You know, it's like, it's just dumb stuff. Like fighting with other streamers. You know, you'd be amazed at like how many little streamer, like little spat kitty cat fighting wars happen between streamers and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't deal with those directly, but, you know, make sure if a partner does it, they need to be, remove their partnership. So I work with a lot of that, but I also work heavily in sort of the developer side of things, because I think I see Twitch for more than just esports. I see it as a place where developers have new age marketing opportunities. I see it as a place where publishers and developers can show the latest build of their game, get feedback from a community, can host tournaments themselves, can do press conferences, like showing all of their E3 press, shit like that. I really, really, really love to do that stuff. So I spend a lot of time working on that too. Like, I say I'm full-time esports, but I like business. I like the business side of Twitch and growing that, and I like to see it, completely crushing its competition. So
I got a little bit ahead of myself. How did you land that job?
Well, of course, like everyone lands a job. I lied.
What?
Well, doesn't everyone just that resume just gets a little puffy? No, I'm just kidding anyway. Actually, I think I landed this job because I was always no fluff with Kevin Lynn. Great example. I chewed Kevin out when Justin TV switched to Twitch TV. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like, this is, my brand says Justin TV everywhere. Like, it's like, we got to change all of our graphics, and you didn't even ask us. And it's like, as a broadcaster, I actually felt hurt by that they put so much time and effort into growing it. Like, why did they just kind of turn around and do something like that? And Kevin, like, I think he really respected the fact that I was vocal about it, and I sat down with him. I wasn't unreasonable about it, but we talked about it, and that was kind of the point where we really started, talking more, and a relationship was developing there. And I think he saw that I had a lot of experience in streaming, and I brought up a lot of good concerns, and I met a few other people from Justin TV, and one thing led to another, and they were like, yo, maybe a job. And I said, maybe a job working remotely. And they said, yeah. That was kind of that. But I am very thankful for the job. I think they're both, everyone that works there is absolutely incredible. I love to see it grow, and it's a great place to work for. So it's been a fantastic opportunity. I mean, I work a shitload. I put in 60 hours a week easily with Twitch, but I love that work.
Right. So I'm getting some reverb for some reason. It goes away, but now it looks like it's actually gone away. I think it's just whenever we're talking, the two mixers are interacting with Skype, and Skype's like just saying "fuck you," so as it usually does. So it looks like it's kind of figured itself out now, though. Yep. But moving along, what are your thoughts on the whole? Whenever an employee of Twitch gets brought onto a show or gets interviewed or is seen kind of in the public light, they're always brought up with the Own3D and Twitch TV debate, argument, conversation. What are your own thoughts on that?
I mean, real talk is that I mean, obviously they're competition, right? Like, I work for Twitch. It's my job to hate them.
Right.
But I mean, like, I guess day after day, I'm less concerned about the competition. And the reason why is because if you spend too much time worrying about your competition, then you're not spending enough time worried about moving forward. And at this point in time, I feel like Twitch TV, from a technology standpoint, from an infrastructure standpoint, from a developer relationship standpoint, from our SDK standpoint, they're really behind on the times. And so I think that when I initially started, and there was a lot of kind of like partner wars going on between the two, trying to snag up all these guys. And, it was a good learning experience, but I think that's pretty much over now. And, I just worry about Twitch. If people want to continue to bring up the Twitch own thing, like, I understand that, because we kind of do the same thing, but there's a ton. I mean, of course, we're both video streaming sites, but behind it, we are a technology company as well, and clearly our sort of paths in technology are far ahead of any of our competitors for that matter. So, I mean, I just want to keep worrying about the future.
Okay. Well, the next question, I think you might answer the same way, but I want to go ahead and ask it anyways. What do you personally think about YouTube kind of entering the whole streamer market? They're doing it very slowly, but
I'm actually just stop you there, dude.
Yeah, same thing.
Their technology is so far behind.
Okay.
And the thing is that, like, it's crazy, right? Because it's fucking Google, man. They know where you're at all the time, JP. Like, they know. They're like, oh, that guy just took a 13-inch shit. We're going to, man, I bet they have that documented somewhere on a secret website only Google employees can access.
A secret spreadsheet of shit.
Yep, exactly. They're like, they know the world record chat. Like, on July 29th, you know, 1941, even when Google wasn't even established yet, because they're that awesome. You'd think if they just focused on one technology that they'd be able to do it. But, you know, they kind of did that in some other places. Google Wave, you ever used that? No. You know, for every success, they've always had some failures as well. And the live streaming seems to be an initiative, but not necessarily from the same standpoint. I think that they're more worried about whether or not they can hold all the people for President Obama speaking versus being able to hold enough people for a video game event. Additionally, like, have you seen the comment system on the YouTube live shit? That stuff is fucking insane. Like, it is.
How so?
Oh my God. Well, it's basically YouTube's comments made chat. And you can't delete it. So it's really bad. Like, imagine the worst comments that could be written there, and they're just there, and you can't get rid of them. I remember laughing so hard because Slasher, one time when MLG was on YouTube, Slasher was like, oh my God, dude, you wouldn't believe the comments that are on this page. Like, it's I mean, the most racist stuff that you can imagine. And he can delete them, you know? So it's like, if they decide to focus on the technology, JP, then they could be a really big competitor in the spot.
Right.
But one's got to, you know, it's like when YouTube started, there was a lot of YouTubes. Eventually, only one came out of it on top. Now, you'd think that video streaming would be something that they would go after. But even if they nailed video streaming, could they nail the community? Could they nail the fact that I'm watching the Evo stream right now on SRK Evo, and, like, you know, the Kappa fucking icons, the emoticons, you know, the memes, that it's like there's a culture within the site. Who can duplicate that? I don't know if anyone can, because it was kind of an accident. So I just, you keep one eye open. Keep one eye open.
All right. Now you've worked for, or casted for, I should say, for pretty much every esports league out there. Maybe Assembly is the only one you haven't actually casted for. Have you done Assembly yet?
Negative.
All right, so Assembly, barring Assembly, who's the best? Just simple question, who's the best?
That I've casted for?
Yes.
Well, it depends on how one would rate the best.
And you're rate it however djWHEAT wants to rate it. Who's the best?
I have to quantify that a little bit, because, like, is the best like they treated me the best? Is the best like this was the best games I ever saw? This was the best experience that I ever had?
I would say not counting the games, because the tournament has no control over that. Just working for them, casting for them, production-wise, team-wise, all-encompassing.
Man, that's a tough call. God. I mean, WCGs were always amazing. Earlier WCGs were better than others. Singapore 2005 was just fucking just incredible. You know, 2006 WCG was pretty amazing because Taste and I casted that year, and that was a blast. But the most fun, God, I honestly I don't know. I don't know if I could rank one as more fun over another because first and foremost, I go there to work. Like fun is always a byproduct of who is there, where we're at, seeing the same people like over again, and it almost becomes like a reunion type thing. And so that makes every event experience fun in that regard. You know, that I don't know that I have an answer. I really don't. I mean, people are going to say like, how could you not have an answer for that? But like, I could pull out an amazing moment experience from any of these, you know, from any of these events, and then how do you weigh those experiences over time? You know, I don't have an answer for you, dude.
What about the flip side? What's the worst event you've ever worked at?
WCG 2006, Monza, Italy.
I knew you were going to say that.
It was the best event, but it was the worst event.
What was so bad about that event?
It was 2 hours away from where we stayed. We were outside and it was raining. No one fucking showed up. It was terrible.
Okay. All right. You've also, along with casting every tournament out there, basically, you've casted pretty much every genre of game that I can think of. What's the weirdest one that you've ever casted? The most niche game you've ever casted?
I don't know that I've ever done anything so like. I'm even trying to think if I've done like any sort of mobile game before or something ridiculous like that. Maybe like Tony Hawk, but I'm trying to think if I did that at WCG. I mean, I think the easiest one is at World Cyber Games 2006 USA Finals at Caesars Palace in Las Vegas.
Oh, shit.
Prey had come out, and they were like, hey, we're doing a 1v1 in Prey, and we want you to shoutcast it. And so this actually is going to be a really great story, JP, because this should be a lesson to every fucking caster out there and why it's important to broadcast more than just StarCraft, if you have the opportunity to. So they asked me to broadcast Prey, or they asked like inside the game, and everyone's like, fuck, like just make Wheat do it, you know? He'll fucking cast a bug crawling across the kitchen counter. So I'm like, all right, word. Well, it just so happened that I downloaded the demo of this game, I played it, and that was enough for me to be able to broadcast it. That was enough for me to know what the names of the weapons were, to know that the guy was going into like a spirit world and you know, fighting his opponent that way. That this map actually was a round corridor. You know, I was exposed to the game just long enough that people probably thought I had been shoutcasting Prey for like a year. You know, and obviously a one-on-one game is much simpler than something like an RTS. But I think that it speaks legions about really expanding oneself when broadcasting, because not only do you learn different styles, but it allows you to take almost any game and broadcast it. Like, there's really only maybe 2 people that I know that can also do that. One of them is Tosspot, who works for Own3D. The other one is Red Eye, who's been getting a lot of praise lately. Yeah. And that was because those guys would never turn down an opportunity to broadcast. So, you know, and they knew that. Like, anytime I was like, yo, Red Eye, I know this is going to, like, but let's do this, like, fucking crazy game, you know, this bad RTS together. Okay, let's give it a shot. You know, we'll suffer through it together. Like, having that willingness to just give anything a shot and having casted so many different games gives you the ability to just about pick up any game. It still takes time. It still takes effort. But any game is going to be a learning process. So, you know, that was probably the craziest game, Prey, that I've ever done. Just like on a whim.
Okay. Talking about MOBAs for just a little bit. Of course, League of Legends, Dota 2, and kind of quietly, no one's really seen anything, but I think it's going to be a big force. Blizzard Dota.
Add Smite to that list. I really like Smite.
Okay, well, the whole fucking MOBA genre, all the different games that are coming out for that genre. Does that genre? I mean, we always have those arguments. I got to mention in Control here, where you have the diehard StarCraft 2 people that just hate this genre of game. Do they have a place in esports, or is it more of that WoW effect right now?
Well, you know, like, it's kind of like this, guys. People used to say the same thing about Quake and Counter-Strike. Like, you know, why don't you just play Quake? Why do you play Counter-Strike? You should just play Quake. Why do you play Quake? You should just play Counter-Strike. But at the end of the day, like, they're two different games, right? They're FPSs, but they're actually, you know, they're actually two different games. I kind of see things like StarCraft and things like League of Legends, two different things. Like, you know, when I think of Quake, I think of one-on-one. When I think of Counter-Strike, I think of 5v5. And it's the same way when I think about StarCraft and I think about MOBAs. StarCraft is my 1v1 game. But unless the teams are fighting individually, I don't give a shit about 2v2s and 3v3s, etc. And no one else does. Don't let them fool you.
Yeah.
But from a team dynamic, sure, these games might be a little bit more limited for skills, but you have to know a lot of champs, and you have to work as a team. And that's a whole other skill set in and of itself. So I really draw on the Quake 3, Counter-Strike, StarCraft 2, MOBA, or RTS MOBA, because I think that MOBAs are RTSs. They are just team RTSs.
Do you think that with Riot supporting League of Legends so well, probably more than any other developer out there right now, definitely more so than Blizzard, definitely more so than Valve, that they've already won in that sense? Or is developer support not that important?
Pioneers. I think that they're pioneers. I don't think it's ever safe to say they've already won. And let me tell you why. Because everyone thought that id Software had already won. You know, they made some of the best FPS engines of all time. But look at them now. Like, how did they get to where they're at now? Like, how did they not just win? You know, how did Epic become the leading FPS engine? You know, you look at that back in 1997, and yeah, Unreal was really like, it had its spot, but you know, people were like, I mean, Carmack was a genius, man. Like, he still is, unfortunately, just not applying it towards video games. So, I don't think anything is a clear win. I think that Riot are pioneers and hopefully thought leaders in what other companies need to do. They're going to see a lot of success because they're the first. But, you know, if you get complacent, then what happens if you lose that spot? Like, I'm not sure anyone is invincible in this space. We thought Blizzard was. Holy hell, Diablo 3 kind of proved us wrong. So, you know, I never look at something and go, yeah, that's an invincible plan. That's an invincible product. That's an invincible mindset. I just give them a lot of credit for being pioneers and thought leaders in that space and in that area.
You mentioned FPS and brought up Epic and id Software and John Carmack and all that. Right now, in the world of esports, it's very, very well known that we currently don't have an FPS, at least competitively. Shoot Mania has kind of got probably the most hype around it. Have you had a chance to see that? And do you think that it, at least for a while, will fill that void?
It's not ready. So when it comes out, we'll look at it again and we'll make this determination. There's a lot of push behind it, and it is something different. But for me, and maybe it's just going to come down to me having to shed a little bit of nostalgia, it doesn't quite cut it yet. But Shoot Mania is also supposed to be incredibly customizable. Like, I do think that a pro mod will be created and will be released, and that's what I'm going to kind of like hold on to my pants for. So once that is said and done, or once I see a legitimate, this is kind of like Quake one-on-one mode, you know, I'm ready for that FPS. I love team FPSs, But I would rather have something like RTCW that was objective based,
absolutely,
and team based, rather than how the Shoot Mania stuff is. It can be exciting, just not quite tickling my fancy yet.
What are the cores? You said that Shoot Mania is kind of missing something. To kind of extract that from your answer, what are the cores of a competitive FPS?
Dude, it's one of those things that's so hard to put into words. It's like asking you, well, what's the difference between Command and Conquer, dude? It was like, well, fuck. I mean, where do we begin? You know, it's so hard. To me, it's kind of crazy because my thought is just fucking copy the shit out of it. Like, how do you think these other MOBAs have been remotely successful? They copy the shit out of something that worked. Even League of Legends, what's the most popular? They copied the shit out of it. Just fucking copy it. We don't need gimmicks. We don't need, like, flashy whatever. Just copy the fucking formula, man. Like, that's what's missing. People are trying too hard. We don't need something that new. We just need what made those games so great. The weapons, the maps, the speed, the excitement, the balance.
Do you think, you mentioned that maybe that's nostalgia kind of driving that. Do you think that's a big driving force behind what you just said?
No, because even the Quake world, the NetQuake legacy from NetQuake and Quake World to, you know, Quake 2 to Quake 3 to OSP to ProMod to CPMA to Quake Live, like, it followed the same formula. I think at that point it just missed out on a few, like, you know, ships that were sailing out to success. So I think we need something updated. I think we need something that people can get into, you know, a little bit easier, but that still excels at a high level. Like, you know, so I don't know. Fuck, man. If I knew, I would make it, dude. But no one seems to be on that track yet.
Yeah. Do you think, I mean, right, the FPS market, it's all going kind of the Call of Duty way. At least it seems that. Do you think we'll ever see generally another Quake-esque game in the esports world? Truthfully.
I mean, I've played 2 clones in the last week that have been better than some of the FPSs I've played in the past 5 years. One of them was Offensive Combat, which is a lot more gimmicky than the other one. The other one's Renaissance Heroes. But I mean, like, I have a feeling it's going to come from this totally unknown place. The problem is that I want id Software to fucking... actually, I think it's more ZeniMax. I want ZeniMax to allow id Software to pull their heads out of whatever ass they're firmly embedded in. Let John Carmack create something amazing in an engine. Make a Quake. And just... yeah, bring back FPSs.
Okay. I'm sorry.
It's so frustrating, dude. Quake is like I go back and I listen to old Quake casts and I'm still just like, Jesus Christ, man. You know, like, it's actually a shame that only 200, 300 people heard this because this game was amazing. And I don't even have a video that goes along with a lot of these games, but it's just like, yes, there's a lot of nostalgia. I might be that guy who's like, I'll stick to Brood War, not StarCraft 2. But at the end of the day, it was just because it was done so fucking right.
Okay. A couple more questions, and then this segment of Real Talk is going to be done. One kind of out of nowhere, and the other one's kind of winding down. What do you think about this term, phrase, idea that's getting thrown around by people in the community of the old esports, the old boys club of esports, kind of the old guard? Is this something that exists? Just what do you think about that idea?
I mean, I kind of like laugh at it because if you want to put someone on a pedestal, negative or not, because they've been around for as long as they have, and because they have beliefs and ideas and thoughts and philosophies because of how long they've been around, like, that's just fucking ignorant in my eyes. I know, I think people like to use old guard in a negative way because they're like, oh, here it goes. We talking about 2002, how it was so great back then and how Quake was so awesome and blah. But I am like I'm so a big advocate of learning from your mistakes, of not seeing the same shit done over and over again. And it happens time and time again, JP. Like, people make mistakes that happened so long ago. So if that's such a bad thing, then yeah, I'm a fucking member of the old guard. Like, I don't give a fuck, you know, like.
I think there's another aspect of it too, that a lot of people use it in the sense that it is incredibly hard to break into the scene as someone like a prevalent figure unless you know someone that already is one of those figures, or you do something that kind of warrants that type of exposure. I
mean, I never saw those boundaries because I was just like, I want that. I'm going to fucking go after it. I'm going to do whatever I got to do to be able to broadcast on TSN. Like, that's my goal. I just worked for it. I got it. You know, like, when there was no esports out there, guys, there was plenty of shit to do. Like, I maybe should have tried breaking in back then. Like, I don't know. I mean, I blame it more on an oversaturation of shit now. Like, and I don't mean to say shit. I just mean, like, content in general. Like, because a lot of it's good. It's just the problem is that, you know, there's so much of it, JP. And so, yeah, it does become harder. But if you work at it, it's going to happen. Like, you know, I mean, I just don't think people by accident. Maybe it's happened a few times, but I think that a lot of times it's as a result of the work they've done. Like, I don't know. This philosophy to me, I kind of think it's bullshit. I feel like it's an excuse for not just working a little bit harder or keeping at it. You know, I worked in this industry for 9 fucking years before I actually got, like, paid for it. It's like, you're gonna, you know, a lot of aspiring writers, they eat ramen for so long before they finally publish something. You can't just have a why can't I get this now philosophy on it. You've got to be willing to make the sacrifices. You've got to be willing to work your ass off. And if one route doesn't yield an opportunity, then you got to go for the next route. But a lot of times, initiative, working hard, just doing it is going to get you a lot further than asking people to do you a favor. Because people are going to want to do your favors for you if they think you're good, if they think you have talent, if they think, you know, whether this is a player or a caster or whatever. So, I mean, maybe that's definitely an old guard answer, JP, but I come from a background of I work to get where I'm at. You know, all those people that are like, yeah, look at you, you just kind of stumbled on the scene. It's like, fucking bullshit, man. Why don't you go look up my fucking history and then realize you just said the dumbest fucking thing on the planet because I fucking sacrificed a hell of a fucking lot and worked real hard to, you know, to get where I'm at. And I think that a lot of people who have seen that same level of success and exposure are, you know, I mean, like, let's take a look at Mr. Bitter. Like, he was Mr. Bitter, and he did 12 weeks with the pros, and now he's commentating Home Story Cup this weekend. Like, was he an old guard? No, man. He brought some pros on. He worked his fucking ass off. He loved StarCraft. Like, use that guy as your inspiration because he is the guy that's proven your ass is wrong.
There you go. I don't really have a follow-up to that at all. I think it was ended well. So, what do you do to relax outside of playing video games?
Play video games?
I mean, that's like
watch movies, watch television show, watch anime, read comics, listen to music, hang out with Mini-Wheat and the fam. We love movies, dude.
Yeah.
I'm a huge horror fan. I've seen every fucking zombie movie out there. I like crazy movies that should make people more demented when they watch them, but I just kind of like that shit. I like to play games on my iPad. I love tower defense games. I play some Magic every once in a while. Yeah, like anime, comics. I love comics and graphic novels. You know this, as I've suggested quite a few to you.
Right.
So, yeah, I would say, reading. I've been reading a lot more lately. I actually just got done with Stephen King's Under the Dome, which is like a great book up until the last 30 pages. Sorry for the spoilers. Still read it. It's fucking amazing. I'm really thinking hard about reading this series that my wife told me to read, since she has now given in to me and is watching One Piece with me. So I love reality TV. I love Survivor. I love Hell's Kitchen. I love Big Brother. I aspire to win Big Brother one day. That's what I do to relax, man. We're definitely, my wife and I, we like to go out. We're taking a vacation to Vegas in a few weeks. That's going to be well-deserved. But, we like to just hang out on the couch, watch some TV, watch things like Game of Thrones and True Blood and hang out with friends, go see movies, take Mini-Me to movies. So, I guess the normal shit people do, but it's a lot of media surrounding what we do.
Yeah. Let's see. Two more questions, actually. First one, what do you define success as? And using that definition, this is something I ask a lot of the people on the show. Do you deem yourself successful at this stage in your life? Yeah,
I do. I deem myself successful because I have an amazing wife, an amazing son, and a job that takes care of them. Like that by any measure out there, it's successful. There are so many people that are unfortunate enough to not have jobs, to have broken families, to not be with their sons or their daughters or with the rest of their families. And so, first and foremost, I feel very successful for that. I had a very strong family mentality growing up, but no doubt about it, the divorce of my parents really affected me in not necessarily a negative way, but more of a positive way. I started seeing my relationship more as I need to do more. I need to make more of an effort. Of course, I've made my mistakes, but it's just allowed us to sort of grow stronger in that regards. That's successful. Seeing a son just do things like read, figure things out, get smarter, buy a Lego set and build it on his own, beat Lego Batman 2 in a week. That to me, that's successful. I raised this kid. He's good, man. But I also get to do what I love to do, JP. I get to, work at a job centered around video games. And that, that to me is success. I've been chasing my dream for a long time. I'm here. Maybe I can go further, but even if I go backwards, at least I can say I still feel fulfilled in my life. And the things that I've accomplished, I hope to accomplish many, many more things, but I feel like I've hit my rock bottom. I've climbed back with my wife, my family. We've been able to climb back. We've jumped over those tough hurdles in life, and we'll have many more ahead of us. But we've reached that point where we can do that, where there's a more stability, there's a little bit more flexibility, so yes, I would say. And people measure success differently, but like I said, first and foremost, can you take care of your family? Yes, you're successful.
And finally, a question from me to you. Are you fucking doing coke lines or something in the bathroom at MLG's? How the fuck do you stay so energetic after being there till 3 a.m. in the fucking morning, and then you go out and hang out with friends till God knows what hour? You're the first one in the fucking venue. Where do you draw upon this energy from? And also, how do you not lose your voice at these events?
Well, I don't lose my voice because I quit smoking. And in August, it's 1 year. And you might have seen me. I'm using my e-cigarette. But this has been a lifesaver for me. This is, smoking's a terrible habit. I don't even wish it upon my worst enemy. But this actually got me off smoking. I don't have to worry about, my kid and smelling like smoke and taking smoke breaks and all the horrible things that come with smoking, and eventually work our way out off of this. But 1 year is a big deal. So stop smoking first and foremost. Second off, for the energy question, is like, man, since the beginning of time, like since we went out and did our first broadcast, which was 2002, I've broadcast for 12-hour days, 15-hour days, 18-hour days, 9-hour days, 6-hour days. So I guess just after you do it for 10 years, JP, you just don't know how to do it any other way. I'm a morning person, and that works out great for me. It's not, I don't know whether that is.
I think that's all you have to say is I'm a morning person.
I'm definitely a morning person.
I think the majority of casters are not morning people.
Yeah, that sucks for them, man. I love mornings.
Okay.
Apollo seems to be a morning guy, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think it's funny every time you or Dan says it all the time. Like, dude, seriously, what the fuck?
Dude, we both sit there, me, Nick, and Dan marvel whenever you're casting. We're just like, guys, we're out of a job. Like, what? This fucker up here still has energy, and it's 3 a.m. in the fucking morning.
I don't know. I don't know any other way of doing it. That's just what I'm used to. So
okay. All right. Well, that is all I've got for you, Wheat, here on Real Talk. But coming up next, we are going to be doing Afterthoughts, which is going to be the majority of the community questions. Didn't really throw any at all into this episode of Real Talk. But before we go, I got to ask, do you have any final thoughts, any final things you want to say?
No. I mean, thanks, everyone, for tuning in. If one person walks away from this and they're like, God, I thought djWHEAT was such an asshole, but I guess he's not so bad, then, I'm happy. Like, I think that people take too many things at face value, and oftentimes they forget that there's a person behind every, everyone out there, whether they be a player, another commenter on Reddit, a user on TL, a broadcaster, a guy who does shows, whatever. And I think that it's really great that there's something out here, that gives people an opportunity to see the people like they don't always get to see them, to learn a little bit more out there. So hopefully, you guys took something away from this. And just want to say thanks. Big shout out to Mini Wheat and Jen.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Wheat, for coming on the show. Right now, Real Talk guest list includes Tasteless, Artosis. We also just secured Justin Wong from the fighting game community, so we'll be doing him in a little bit. Still working on some other guys, and there's still a huge list of people that I still want to get on the show. So that's kind of what you can look forward to. But for now, go ahead and check out this video. It's going to be up on the page right now. Just click on it, and you will get some more stuff coming out of djWHEAT. But for djWHEAT, I'm JP McDaniel. This has been Real Talk. We will see you guys on Afterthoughts or on the next episode of Real Talk.
Peace!
There you go.